Hello and welcome again to Not Fake News. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and smash that like button. No, not that way, Madame Secretary. This way. Danger, ethical minefield. You got the Clinton Foundation on the floor. You got WikiLeaks. You got emails. You got Benghazi. Yeah. Not that way, Miss Clinton. We have a bunch of breaking stories for you right now. So, let's do this. Uh-oh, bad news for fake news media. That's one story. Next will be Democrats exposed in voter fraud scheme. That's right, folks. Depressing. Snowflake election day versus Comey day pics are in. Ching, ching. And Newt Gingrich just revealed the truth about Comey and goes full throttle. Finally, Vladimir Putin just made a statement. Yeah. Let's go first with this. Uh-oh, bad news for fake news media. Reported to you by Not Fake News. Isn't that just great? The fake news media is in a declared war on the president to the point that they're running outright lies. New poll indicates Americans do not trust the media. Pollster Frank Luntz shared this graph showing a huge decline in trust. I've heard a common complaint: journalists seem to write for each other. Colleagues may forgive your missteps, but your audience will not. Yep, down, down, down. It's galloping like a horse. Down. That was the second anonymously sourced bombshell in 2 days that was debunked by Comey on record's testimony. Reports must do better. These are the stories that they were headlining. Breaking in testimony, Comey notes multiple times that he assures President Trump that the president was not personally under investigation. In testimony, Comey will dispute Trump's blanket claim that he was not under investigation. No, none of that happened. None of that happened. Oh, you know who the leaker is, by the way? There he is. Comey. Big leaker. In trouble. Next story. Democrats exposed in voter fraud scheme. Wait a minute, isn't that Trump and Russia? Wait, no, it's who we all thought it was. The Democrats, Trump's right again. Employees of a Democratic-linked group in Indiana have been exposed, submitting fake voter registration applications. 12 workers of a Democratic link, 12 in Indiana, accused of submitting fraudulent voter registration applications. Indiana, huh? Is that a blue state? 12 employees are in big trouble. Mobilizing black voters in Indiana are accused. Anything else? Oh, here we go. 12 employees of a Democratic-linked focus on mobilizing black voters in Indiana are accused of submitting fake fraudulent voter registration applications ahead of last year's general election in order to meet quotas, according to charging documents filed on Friday. Marion County prosecutors allege that 11 temporary workers employed by the Indiana Voter Registration Project created and submitted an unknown number of falsified applications, according to the probable cause advocate. A supervisor for those canvassers, Holiday Burke, was also charged, as was the group. The Indiana Vote Registration Project effort to register primarily black voters was overseen by Patriot Majority USA, which has ties to the Democratic Party, including Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid. You know, the guy who told everybody, just give him fake information. And former President Bill Clinton, you know, the guy who gropes women in the Oval Office. State police have begun investigating the group in August after the clerk in Henderson County, near Indianapolis, flagged about a dozen registration forms that had missing or suspicious information. That investigation expanded to 56 counties where Patriot Majority said it had collected about 45,000 voter registration applicants before last November's election. All 12 defendants face one count each of procuring or submitting voter registration applications known to be false, fictitious, or fraudulent. 11 of them face one perjury count each, while the 12th, their supervisor, faces one count of counterfeiting. If convicted on all charges, each defendant faces up to 2.5 years in prison. The Indiana Voter Registration Project faces the same charges as the supervisor. If convicted, the group could face a fine of $10,000. During the campaign, then Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence, raised the possibility of a rigged election. They offered no proof. Patriot Majority, meanwhile, asked the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to determine whether the police investigation was an attempt to suppress black voters. Marion County Prosecutor Terry Curry, a Democrat, urged all sides to tone down the rhetoric. Curry said the police investigation found no evidence of voter fraud or voter suppression, and that the charges against the workers arose from a very bad, ill-advised business practice of setting canvases what appears to be a daily quota. Right. Yeah, well, guess what? I don't buy that daily quota thing because you don't have any Republicans on the right side doing this and getting a daily quota problem. Let's just look what this has to say, because this is really important. There we go. Some pictures. Okay, looks like we have a little more, folks. I'm just going to back up to right there. The investigation found workers that submitted bogus applications on behalf of non-existent residents, submitted new applications for people who were already registered, and at least one application was submitted on behalf of a minor. A search warrant unsealed on November 14th says some workers admitting to falsifying registrations, saying they faced the possibility of losing their temporary job if they didn't register at least 10 new voters a day. The probable cause advocate says supervisors told canvassers to obtain their quota by any means necessary. Yeah. That's why they're guilty, because that, by saying that, it means what it means. They knew what it means. They said, get it any way you can. Canvassers were paid $10 an hour and worked 5-hour shifts. By giving someone financial motive to meet a quota is what caused these canvassers to cut corners and do the things that they're not usually, to undermine the goal of having a legitimate registered voter, but led to a situation where alleged it blew over into criminal conduct, Curry said. No. That's just a cover for the person who was doing this, and someone was behind this. Someone was behind it and told them to do it. Okay? That's not true. That's the lie. That's the lie. Someone was behind it, and they told them what to do. Go away. Patriot Majority President Craig Varoga said last year that canvassers weren't paid according to the quota system and had been instructed that it is illegal to provide false information on voter registration forms. The search warrant indicated that Patriot Majority submitted several hundred voter registration applications that included false, incomplete, or fraudulent information. The warrant contents allowed state police to raid the Indianapolis offices of Patriot Majority USA in October. Curry said it is unclear how many problematic applications were submitted, but that it was a relatively small number. Really? So you're unaware with how many it is, but you're going to say it's small? I'm sorry. Don't buy it. Probably a lot. Thousands. Thousands and thousands. Tens of thousands. And there is who? Who is he? Canvassers charged in fake by Rick. He must be the head of it. There's the guy who was told by somebody on the left to do it. And he went and told his 11 workers. Next, Depressing. Snowflakes, Election Day versus Comey Day. Pics are
critical
in.
alert.
Depressing. Snowflake, Election Day versus Comey Day. Pics are in. Thursday. James Comey's testimony was supposed to be a jubilant occasion for liberals. Instead, it was a day of mourning, as Comey failed to deliver the knockout punch Dems and fake news media hoped would bring down the president. Some bar owners in Washington, D.C. offered to buy a free round of drinks for every time the president tweets out during the testimony. The president decided he wasn't going to tweet, not a single tweet during that time, during the much anticipated event. 1 hour into Comey's testimony, depressing photographs from the bars began to leak onto social media. The images were reminiscent of Election Day, when Trump crushed Hillary Rotten Clinton. Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, okay, that's Election Day? That's Election Day. This is like 6 months of getting kicked in the teeth by their party who doesn't care a thing about them. Look at them. They're like a man with no country. Nobody happy. What's the matter? You wanted Trump to be colluding with Russia? You're not happy that America's safe? Wait a minute. Why aren't they happy that America is safe from Russian collusion as far as the president goes? They should be happy, right? Oh, wait a minute. They just wanted to take down President Trump. Oh, right. Patricia Dickerson. Thanks, Patricia. Dead silence here in Brooklyn as bar patrons watch Comey. Election night, round 2. Liberals are so sad that their make-believe conspiracies aren't real. Aww. But we keep on winning, don't we? We've never seen remarkable restraint from the president, who has stayed away from Twitter, constantly broadcasting crap right now. The bar is certainly low. Views of D.C. Union Pub, Capitol Hill, 1 hour into Comey Sports Bar, where Comey is the home team. Honestly loyal gets applauded. The video was posted an hour before Comey's testimony. Before. It's party night.
So, for a variety of reasons, we also were aware of facts that I can't discuss in an open setting that would make his continued engagement in a Russia-related investigation problematic. And so we were convinced, in fact, I think we'd already heard that the career people were recommending that he recuse himself.
Union Pub on Capitol Hill is packed. I walked by. I'm waiting for POTUS to tweet so I can get a free drink. Sad day in the U.S. No free drinks for you guys. Just one big nose Hillary. Big old liar. Suckers. I think I'm going to go get myself a drink and pay for it because I'm not a bombski. Next. Newt Gingrich just revealed the truth about Comey and goes full throttle. On Facebook Live, Newt Gingrich exposed the deep state and former FBI director as a political hack. Gingrich said Comey's testimony against Trump was personal, and he behaved like someone that was fired. But, disgruntled employee. That's why.
Thank you for joining me. I want to take some time today to talk about former FBI Director Comey's testimony yesterday, and also to point out how much it validates my new book, Understanding Trump, which will be out next Tuesday. Because it was a perfect, if you look at his testimony and you back up as a historian, it is a perfect example of what we mean.
Okay, we're going to watch this, but I have one more story. I just want to get to it really quick, and then we go pop back to that, because it's 15 minutes long. Vladimir Putin just made a statement. Russian president commented on the peace process seeking to end the war in Syria. Putin claimed he was encouraged by the process. Nothing but ABC News reports Russia, along with Turkey and Iraq, sponsored talks with Kazakh capital, Astana, bringing them together with the Syrian government and the opposition are focused on reducing violence. The next round of talks is set for later this month. Speaking at the Security Summit in Kazakhstan on Friday, Putin hailed the talks as providing a genuine chance to strengthen the ceasefire and give impetus to the U.S. brokered talks in Geneva. That's it. I knew it was a short one. That's great. Now, back to Newt Gingrich, going full throttle about Comey. Ready? Are you ready? That came out bad. My voice just cracked.
By the deep state. It's a perfect example of how sick the system has become. And it is a stunning display of personal nastiness and personal vindictiveness. Now, let's start with Comey's attitude towards Trump. Comey behaves exactly like somebody who's been fired. It can't be his fault. Trump fired him, so Trump must be a bad guy. He said really nasty things about Trump. But all of you who are watching, I mean, how often have you seen somebody go through this cycle? The fact is, Comey couldn't say, he said unkind things about Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General under Obama, and things were her fault, not his. He said unkind things about Attorney General Sessions, the Attorney General under Trump, and they were Sessions' fault, not Comey's. And then, of course, he just went after Trump at a personal, nasty level. And my first reaction was, this is just a really bitter guy using a national stage to spew his venom and his acid because he's so angry because he got fired. It hurt his feelings. It hurt his sense of self-respect. In addition, it reinforced the last time I saw Comey, which was when he was anguishing in public about what he should have done and how difficult it would have been. And, oh, golly gee, he really felt bad about it. And I thought to myself then,
Lordy,
we're watching psychotherapy on the national stage, and that's not appropriate for the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, he's like
this is the leading crime investigating institute in the United States, and I think you have to have somebody who's a serious professional who gets a grip on themselves. But the most remarkable thing that Comey said, which I hope the Congress is going to really look at carefully, and I hope the House and Senate Judiciary Committees are going to really review carefully, was the part in his testimony where he said that, oh yes, he had leaked a memo to a friend of his who was a college professor, so the friend could leak it to the New York Times so that they would create the pressure to create an independent counsel.
That's right.
Now think about this.
And
the guy who, at the time he did it, was the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Right.
He had the option of submitting a letter to the Assistant Attorney General and the Attorney General saying we need an independent counsel. He had the option of sending a letter to the Congress saying, in my professional judgment, we need an independent counsel. But what he said was that he deliberately leaked it using an Attorney General as a cutout. Now, let me say, I'm just in the process of finishing my third novel about terrorism. I've written two earlier ones, Duplicity and Treason. The next one, which will be out in October, is called Vengeance. And in our novels, we do a number of things that are pretty daring about Washington. But the idea that the Federal Bureau of Investigation top person, the man who's in charge of criminal investigations for the entire federal government, that he would go outside the system, deliberately manipulate the system. And that's what he's done. And I think what that brings into question is whether or not the Congress should shut down the independent counsel because it is poisoned fruit.
That's right.
The independent counsel, by Comey's own testimony yesterday,
That's right.
was created because of his manipulation.
That's right.
Because of his leak, because of his deliberate intent to force it to happen. Now, since we now know that he's a very bitter person, and we know how deeply he disliked Trump, doesn't that sound more like this is not about law and order, this is not about justice, this is not even about investigating potential crimes. This is a bitter man trying to get even by trying to cause as much pain for the president as he can. And I think it puts into doubt the entire process of the current independent counsel. And I think the entire process by which they made the decision to do it has to be re-examined. Remember, this is not my allegation. This is Comey's own personal statement.
That's right.
That's what he did. On the other front, Comey's testimony, ironically, completely exonerated President Trump on the Russian question. When you have people who are clearly the president's opponents come out and say flatly, Chris Matthews, hardly a supporter of Donald Trump, came out yesterday and said, after this testimony, no reasonable person can believe that Donald Trump had anything to do with the Russians. That's a pretty big breakthrough in Trump's favor. And I think that's the other thing that came out of all this. There is no smoking gun. I was very struck many years ago. Wendy's ran an ad campaign called Where's the Beef? And they were sort of taking on Burger King and McDonald's and arguing that you got more burger from Wendy's. And so this whole series of ads where people were looking for Where's the Beef? And Gary Hart was running as a New Ideas candidate for the presidency in 1984, and he was taking on Walter Mondale. And they got to a big debate, a key debate for the Democrats. It was at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. And I was actually allowed, it'd be hard to do this today, but I was actually allowed to go as a media commentator. And I was already a congressman, but I was there as a media commentator. In fact, David Broder of the Washington Post walked up to me and said, no, you can't be in here. You're either one or the other. But in fact, I was there. Well, at a key point in the debate, Gary Hart's going on about the need for new ideas and all this stuff. And Mondale turns and just says very casually, Gary, I don't get it. Where's the beef? And Hart was just stunned. He couldn't answer him. He couldn't say 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's where we differ. Well, I get this sense. I keep watching these news reports. I keep hearing commentators who hate Trump use huge like earthquake, bombshell, things that you look up and you think, wow, this is going to be a big deal. And in fact, I want to ask, where's the beef? What's the complaint? Now we know there's no evidence that the president engaged with the Russians. So what's the whole deal? This is one of those things where the investigation continues because the investigation continues, and it doesn't matter that the investigation is proving there's nothing there. We'll just bring in more people. We'll have more interviews. We'll try even longer. So I thought yesterday was a very revealing day, and you could tell it, by the way, if you watch the news media coverage. If it's a place that hates Trump, they clearly thought that Comey was brilliant. If it's a place that did not hate Trump, they clearly thought that Comey had made a bunch of major mistakes and had in fact embarrassed himself. Now, Juan Rivera Rentas says, would purposely leaking his own memos to knowingly trigger the appointment of a special prosecutor be obstruction of justice in itself? I honestly don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a historian. I don't know if it would be obstruction of justice. I do know that it is manipulation of the system. I do know that it is everything that sickens people about what they call the swamp. I think it's, frankly, I wouldn't have put it in a novel. I think it's a stage too far. And yet, you clearly have Comey from day one deeply disliking Trump. You have Comey having very bad interaction with Trump. And you have Comey decide, I'm going to do what I can to cause the president as much pain as I can. And doing it by going outside the system, deliberately leaking to a friend of his who's a professor, and having that guy take it to the New York Times, which of course, since it's the leading anti-Trump publication, or tied with the Washington Post as the leading anti-Trump publication, it was weird. I mean, the Times was thrilled to publish it, and it led to what Comey wanted. But my question for the Congress, my question for the House and Senate Judiciary Committees is, shouldn't you be investigating whether or not, in fact, there was a legitimate reason to appoint this independent counsel? And whether or not, in fact, the current independent counsel is the right person, since he was apparently Comey's choice? And isn't this whole thing just a little sick and totally a violation of the rule of law and a very personality-driven, emotionally laden process? Okay. Patricia Janfili says, why didn't any of the senators ask Mr. Comey what else he may have leaked to the press, either directly or through one of his friends? Well, somebody should have. Maybe they should submit a question to him today and ask him to tell him Did he, for example, share his testimony with Robert Mueller, the independent counsel? Did he share it with anybody else? What other things has he leaked over the last year or two? How many of the leaks that people were blaming on the Trump White House actually came out of the FBI director's office? I think all those are good questions. I will give Senator Susan Collins credit. She's the one who asked the question that led him to talk about having leaked. And I think she deserves real recognition for having asked the best question of the entire hearing. Patty Arvidsson says, do you have faith in the special prosecutor Robert Mueller's ability to conduct an unbiased investigation? No. Zero. None. Let's start with the practical reality. 97% of the political contributions in the Justice Department in 2016 went to Hillary Clinton. 97%. That's about 33 to 1. Now, in that setting, what do you think the culture's like? How many of those attorneys do you think want to get Trump? How many of them do you think are bitterly opposed to his policies? Now that we know that this was all a deliberate setup by Comey, I think it puts in question the entire process by which Mueller was chosen, the entire process by which they decided. If they decided to set it up as Comey thinks and said yesterday, because of his leak, this whole thing is sick. It has nothing to do with the rule of law and everything to do with the kind of petty search for vengeance that we associate with third world countries or with Shakespearean plays. Diane Frederick says, why isn't a full investigation of Loretta Lynch being done for intimidating Comey, so he said, and influencing him during the email investigation? You know, for better or worse, Republicans have a remarkable inability to pursue information that would hurt their opponents. I don't know whether they think somehow that will make their opponents like them more. I don't know whether it goes back to what they were taught as children. But if you watch, Democrats are very enthusiastic about going after their opponents. Republicans are not. And there are a number of good questions. No one has ever really put under oath both Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton to say, what did you guys talk about on that airplane? And it doesn't pass a laugh test.
Yeah.
But I think that what Republicans ought to focus on is closing down the independent counsel, because he's not independent. He apparently is very close to Comey. We know Comey hates Trump. You have to assume that that has to leak over to Mueller. And you have to assume that the people who are going to bring in are essentially Justice Department people who were 33 to 1 in favor of Clinton over Trump. This clearly cannot be an honest, independent investigation.
I don't really have it, but I'm getting it.
Elaine Duhamel says, why is it with all the crimes that have been committed that no significant person responsible has been arrested?
I was sleeping.
I think that's a very good question. And in my book, Understanding Trump, I talk at length about how really different he is because he's a businessman, he's an entrepreneur, he's not part of the Washington swamp. He doesn't understand the games that are played here. That's one of the things that I think keeps him permanently in trouble with the news media. He behaves like a businessman, he does not behave like a traditional politician, and they just don't get it, and it keeps them permanently confused. But I think in that setting, there's a young woman, 25 years old, who has been arrested and is being threatened with 10 years in prison. Now, for leaking secrets. Now, my question is, how can you talk about the rule of law?
Be around today?
How can you talk about America standing for justice if this 25-year-old woman, who apparently made one mistake, is potentially facing 10 years in jail, and Hillary Clinton's thousands of emails don't count?
So when do you think?
Nothing that Comey has done counts. Nothing that the Attorney General under Obama and the former President of the United States did, meeting privately on an airplane just before a decision was made about Mrs. Clinton, doesn't count. This isn't the rule of law. This is the rule of influence peddling. It's the rule of prejudice. It's the rule of, in some cases, hatred. But it's not the rule of law. And I think America, in that sense, is at a knife's edge. And the question is going to be whether President Trump, his supporters, and the Republicans in the House and the Senate have the courage to stand up and fight against huge forces of the deep state, which were personified yesterday in Comey's testimony.
Just go right in.
I hope you get a chance to look at Understanding Trump. I think it'll help you get a better sense of why the left is so crazy and so enraged. I think it'll give you a better sense of how Trump operates, what he's trying to accomplish. But this is a serious time for America, and I appreciate your taking the time to be with me today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And thank you everyone for watching. Hey folks, if you like that video, you will love what we have for you right where those arrows are pointing. Boom, boom. Just click on it, and I'll see you in a moment. Thanks for watching Not Fake News.